Alex, a lawyer and a financial advisor walk into a bar.
No, and then what happens, Dave?
Well, the question comes up, should I set up a self-managed super fund?
Good question. Of course you should. Everyone who's wealthy and successful has a self-managed super fund. So I do what wealthy and successful people do. And in fact, I have just recently set up a self-managed super fund. So
there you go.
Now, I guess I can say, why did I do that? I'd like to say I had a great strategy, but I think I just talked to my accountant and we thought, the balance is kind of high enough to justify the fee. Let's go ahead and do it. And I think maybe I was thinking at some point I might buy an office for the business through the fund and then rent to myself, sort of thing. So is that a good reason? Am I on track?
Well, yes, you're on the right path, but I do think part of the question becomes there's a whole lot of stuff. One is I'm at the barbecue and yes, I've set up my self-managed super fund. It's like, Jesus, who's swinging the big one? This one.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, seriously, get over it. It's not. Yeah. It's going back to, should I set up a self-managed super fund? The question is, what's the purpose? Why do you want to do it? Is it because it's the flavour at the moment, or is it because it is an appropriate strategy based upon a reason behind it? And I agree. One of them for an SME, and they want to purchase their commercial property, office or factory or just the site that they're operating their businesses from. It's not a bad thing. If there's enough proceeds in the super fund, you can purchase it. You can borrow to it to an extent, and then you're paying rent to someone else anyway. So why not pay the rent to yourself to pay it off? Yeah, perfect. But there's got to be a point where you've got enough proceeds in the super fund, and you've got to continue to. So you've got to pay the rent. Plus, you want to continue to contribute your contributions into the super fund to justify the whole purpose.
Well, and then you've got, if you do that, then you've got probably your only asset. If it might be your only asset, might be just that building, which, given what's happened with COVID and everything recently, that might not be such a good thing. You had you have your building empty for a while or whatever, or your business might change. This is probably slightly
different. You move out and you've got to change, and so then you get someone else to rent it.
Yeah, and so the premise is no longer suitable. So I know I wouldn't personally. I think I wouldn't buy an office for my business until I was sure that it was going to be suitable for a long term, which may never happen, or alternatively, it was just one of many investments in the fund, so it didn't matter so much. But you wouldn't want to spend all your money on that, or at least I wouldn't.
But also, so what happens is that sometimes people get a bit older and then they go, no, now I'm ready to go. I'll buy this property in my super fund. Okay. Yep. So they've liquidated other investments. They've got, and I'll use it around figure. We'll say, right, there's $1 million cash.
Yeah.
They go and buy this, $1.5 million piece of real estate. So they've got $500,000 of debt.
Yeah.
And they basically used all the cash in the super fund. So they got rent coming in. They got contributions coming in. Yep. And then they turn around and say, right, I'm going to retire in 5 years.
Yep.
And I'm going to turn my pension on within my self-managed super fund.
Yeah.
Once you turn your pension on, you have to draw out a percentage each year, a minimum amount, right?
Which you might not have, right?
Correct. So all of a sudden, people have gone, oh, no, I've got all this. And this is where you get these spruikers out there as well. No, you should buy this and then put it in your self-managed super fund because we can gear you up and do this. And they go, well, right, well, then how do I draw out? So their self-managed super fund, a couple of years, all of a sudden it's grown to, $2.5 million value. Yeah. So then you say, righto, year one is a 4% drawing on $2.5 million.
Yeah.
So you've got to draw out $100,000 income.
Right.
And they say, but the property's gone up in value.
Yeah.
As you said before, it's the only asset that I have in there.
Yeah.
I'm only getting $80,000 rent.
Yeah.
For the property. But so this is where it's a longer term approach. Yeah. You've got to understand if you're going to set it up and hold that single asset, that there's a risk in there, because if it is on the basis, but I'll get a really good rental income, but the rental income may be okay, but your pension is determined based upon the balance as at 30 June. So, for instance, we're in the financial year of 23-24. So 1 July 23 to 30 June 2024. So if you're paying a pension in this current financial year, it's determined on the value of the 30th of June 2023. And then you have to take that it's not like I'll just do as a book entry. like you can do with other trusts and stuff.
Yeah.
This is you physically have to be...
Money has to come out.
Because you've turned your pension on because it's coming out to you tax-free.
Yeah.
So you have to draw the payment.
To sell in that circumstance? You'd have to sell the building.
Possibly.
Yeah. So that'd be very bad.
Well, so sometimes what people might do is that they might have had a family trust, so therefore they might then sell it from the self-managed super fund to the family trust.
Right. Okay.
But then you're changing ownership, so you're paying stamp and there's tax implications and
bad.
So it all comes back to what is the purpose of what you're trying to achieve with the self-managed super fund, and it's not just to buy the investments; it's the long term.
I know the answer. The answer is to get really rich.
Well,
that's what people say. Oh, I want to get very rich. And so
they can help.
Yeah. But ultimately, the way I see it is it's one of the buckets, if you like, of money that you hopefully develop over time. You have your super fund, and the reality is you're going to be putting money in your super fund anyway. Do you have a view about, at what where it becomes kind of because self-managed super funds certainly have to be audited, and the audit fees are more expensive than the fees you would be charged, or generally more expensive than the fees you would be charged doing through a industry super fund or a
well, because that's all incorporated into it. So
but that means that the balance needs to be a certain level, or the whole thing's uncommercial. Would that be right?
Yeah, look, you probably, it depends on the circumstances and what you're looking at, but I think if you're anything under sort of 350, 400 and probably closer to $500,000, it would be, there'd have to be a very good reason to do it.
Yeah.
And also, some people are like, but I just want to buy and sell my stocks. Like, okay, that's fine. Again, I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah.
If people want to do that, what I get concerned about sometimes is these property spruikers that say, oh, no, liquidate your retail super fund or industry super fund, and we can get you we're doing a development, and it's a 2-unit development or 6-unit development. You can buy 2 of the units, put them in your self-managed super fund, they're going to get rented, and you can gear it to 60% of the value, and on you go.
Yeah.
What people forget, you've just cancelled your existing industry or retail super fund that may have had some insurance in there.
Yeah, so you've lost
it
your
doesn't
insurance.
Transfer over to your self-managed super fund.
Yeah.
But also, they're at a point, and as I said before, if they're looking to retire, they may not, and there may not be the capital growth in that asset that they had anticipated. The brokers have said, oh, no, these things will sell and they rent all the time. But the rent may just, like we've just had, interest rates have gone up. The rent may be just keeping up with interest rates.
Yeah.
You're not actually paying the principal off that much. And it might take you 15 years to pay the principal off, but you're retiring in 5 years.
Yeah,
or even 10 years.
The gas mains might go out, or there might be some termite infestation or whatever that suddenly you're going to have to dip your hand in your super fund pocket to pay for all of that, right?
Yes, because you can't use external proceeds.
Yeah.
So there's a whole range of reasons, and it's been clear on what, again, I always go back to this question, what is the purpose of what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah,
and instead of it just being, because I heard it was a good idea, is understanding the compliance costs. So one is establishment, then there's ongoing maintenance.
Yep.
So establishment is probably between $2,000 and $3,500, and your maintenance is probably between sort of, I don't know, it depends how complicated it is and where you get it, but I would put it in the range of sort of $1,500 to $2,500. So year one can be anywhere sort of, $5,000 to $7,000.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying if the balance is, $300,000, then you're going to be paying a lot less, in an industry super fund.
Absolutely.
Whereas if the balance is more like $1 million, then you might actually be saving money.
Well, yeah, and you can then, there's just different ways, and you've got some options. And then if it's $1 million, you might be able to do a split between an equity portfolio and a piece of real estate, direct real estate, because you've got a bit of liquidity in there. But do you know what I mean? It then sort of comes back to how do you want it? Again, purpose and understanding the implications of making that decision rather than it just being a good idea. Because so there's obligations. As a self-managed super fund, and this is an interesting one too, which we've seen quite a bit, I'll set it up as the husband and wife in individual names.
Oh, why would you do that? That's bad news.
So you have that, right, as the trustees of your self-managed super fund.
Yeah.
As opposed to Alex Martin Proprietary Limited as trustee. So if it's individuals, if you own assets as individuals as the trustee, if one of you is deceased, you have to go through the enormous process of changing ownership structure and all of that stuff. As opposed to a corporate trustee, it just moves forward because the members. But if you're a member of a self-managed super fund, you also have to be a director of the trustee company. We would never set up or make a recommendation to set up as individual trustees. It would always be a corporate trustee. But people, if they're not familiar with having the obligations of being a director, you can't just, I'll just do that. I'll pull money in and out. It's like, no, there are obligations.
Well, there's even if a super fund buys a bit of artwork, you can't display it, right? You can't enjoy, if you've got a residential investment property, you can't go and, fix up the drains, right? You can't do work to it because that's a super contribution.
Well, that's a mate. No, so there's a combination. So if you had a kitchen inside a property that you owned, you can pull that kitchen out and replace that kitchen. That's okay with proceeds. But you can't then come in and go, now I'm going to knock the whole arse end of this house off and renovate it. With borrowed funds, not happening. And you get that opportunity.
There's a whole bunch of rules that you got to know
Absolutely.
about. And so if you're not into following all that or knowing all of that, that's fine. But maybe you just stick with don't open a self-managed super fund if you don't want that headache.
Well, people think, what's it like? It's just another trust structure, which it is. There's a trust deed and there's a company constitution, but the rules around a self-managed super fund versus a family trust that you can pull money in and out of and do bits and pieces. That's just not. Once the money's in super, it's in super. Unless you're retired or there's a death or there's something else that occurs, it gives you a reason to pull it out. So it's always easier to say, I'll just set it up. It can't be that hard.
So what would be the main reasons people set up self-managed super funds? So maybe they're interested in share trading themselves and they want to do that. Maybe they're wanting to buy property for their business at some point or some combination of those things. Maybe would you say they got excess money, excess cash coming out of their business and they think, I want to just put it in the bucket? I guess you can just put it in a regular super fund. You don't need a self-managed super fund for that.
Yeah, well, then it comes back to the contributions. I mean, there's a concessional contribution, so it's tax deductible, $27,500 per person per annum. But then you can put after-tax contributions in, so you paid tax on it, and it goes into the super fund, and that's $110,000 per annum at this stage. And so those will change. So it just sort of varies on, again, it comes back to what is your overall entity structure and approach, but also what is the purpose of what you're trying to do?
And I mean, it's a bit hard to kind of decide whether you'd have a self-managed super fund without looking at, well, where's the rest of your, what's your overall approach and where's the rest of your money and what income are you on and all that sort of stuff. Because I know some of the advisors that I deal with say they spend as much time advising people to shut down their self-managed super funds as they do telling them to start them up, because people have started them often as a result of some spruiker, as you said, someone who says, here's a whiz-bang idea. And I've had some clients who've come to me saying, can you just check this deed, this investment document? I said, hang on, what's all this about? And they say, I'm going to get into self-managed super fund and buy into this. And they really in my view, had a number done on them by a sale.
I agree.
And the overall plan is not a good one. And it's all this kind of, that's what rich people are doing. They've got the magic formula, that they get these sweet returns. And, here's a graph that shows the arrows going in the right direction and all that stuff. I mean, that's not financial. And the person shouldn't be giving them financial advice. No. It's someone trying to sell you a product. And
and then because then they get a fee on the establishment, then the compliance. So all of a sudden they're clipping the ticket on about 3 or 4 transactions.
Yeah, they get sale. Often they're the real estate agents who are selling the property. They might own the construction company or whatever.
Correct.
They've got a whole lot of So they these kind of packages that are flogged. I'm sure some of them are legit, but a lot of them are dodgy, and it's kind of hard to work out they're dodgy unless you're extremely astute and can do the numbers yourself, which most of us can't.
And this is where you go back to that point about closing down. A self-managed super fund, and that is starting to happen more. So, again, no issue about people setting up a self-managed super fund. I think it's a really good strategy. But there's also that point that says, at what point do you draw the line? So there can be, again, we'll use a traditional model, husband and wife, husband loved it, had a good business, had a self-managed super fund, bought and sold some shares, had a piece of real estate. It was very good. Husband's deceased.
Yep.
All of a sudden, the spouse is left there, and she's like, "Well, I didn't really have that much of an interest in it.
Yep.
I don't want to have to keep signing off on accounts and doing all this other stuff." So you might say, "Okay, let's simplify it, and we'll roll you into a retail or an industry fund."
Yep.
Because they've become so much more sophisticated, the retail and industry funds, and far more cost effective, that you get as much flexibility. But someone who might be in their late 70s, they're on their pension, they just need to make sure they're getting their pension payment from their super fund each year. They're not. Some of them are just not. They're like, I don't need to, get into the nitty gritty. I just want someone to keep it in that super environment for me.
Yeah.
Because I want the longevity that sits within it.
Yeah.
So it is. Sometimes it is better to shut it down than keep it open.
Yeah. A lot of it is to do with, how it affects your life in a practical way. It's all very well, they'll just give you a 1% better return or whatever. And you're like, yeah, but, if you don't want to be doing all of this, if you don't want to be looking at the investments that the super fund's making, then why be responsible for them? Leave it to someone else who knows what they're doing and, who charge a fee for it. But, you're going to have a compliance cost no matter what you do. And, you can get insurance and other things rolled in, which all become... Certainly, I found that having the self-managed super funds a lot more work. I kind of like it. Like, I quite like looking at the shares and I find that kind of interesting.
Yep.
But if you didn't find it interesting, it'd just be a pain in your butt. And if that's not your thing, then why bother? Because there's people out there who can do it at a reasonable fee through the retail or
absolutely.
You can do it through your industry super fund and everyone's a winner.
Yeah, which again comes back to the question of what is the purpose of why you want to set it up, and getting someone to articulate that for you is always so important, because a lot of the time it is, oh, well, that's because, Pete, my mate, just set one up. He reckons it's awesome.
That is often. I mean, that's where most people get their financial advice, at the barbecue, from their cousin, from their uncle who likes to tell everyone what to do. And often it's the empty vessel makes the most noise. Whoever's telling you what to do has actually no idea what they're talking about, and it's people who are quiet who actually have some wisdom that they don't share.
But we've heard of stories of people that've gone, no, we'll set up the self-managed. So they sell everything in their retail or industry super fund. They set up the self-managed and they put it in cash.
Right.
And it stays in cash for 2-3 years.
Oh, because they haven't got around to investing.
Because they just sort of, I'm not, should I do this or not? Like, there's almost, it's inertia.
Yeah, right.
And they're like, I'm not sure what to do. I was going to do that, but that deal fell over.
Yeah.
And then, I've had that where people go, yeah, but we've had it in cash for 2.5 years. They're like, wow, the market's gone up 20% in that time period and you haven't done it. Oh, but I'm not sure when's the right time to get in. So again, what is the purpose? And if you're doing it, there is a purpose and a reason as to why you're establishing it, not just on a whim. And I cannot emphasize that enough, because you are just spending money in an area that is completely unnecessary.
Yeah, because we should make that point. I mean, do you need a self-managed, if you're going to if say you've got a very successful business and life's going well, and do you need a self-managed super fund? Does it add anything to your life that an industry super fund doesn't give you?
Yeah, and a lot of the retail and industry funds, you've got a bit of flexibility these days. You can, depending on which one it is, you can sort of buy and sell a little bit of stuff directly yourself.
Yeah. I know the fund I was involved in, you could at least set the parameters, higher growth, lower growth, more dividends, more whatever, which, you could change as you kind of age, I guess. That was my thinking, that you change them as you age, your kind of investment horizon changes and so on. So if you wanted to be active, you could be. But you didn't have to be. And I certainly liked that the insurance and all of that was all part of the package, which was sort of good. Although I think in private insurers, you can often get a more comprehensive and more appropriate insurance policy.
Again, it comes back to your personal circumstances and what your requirements are, and if there's any health issues and all of those sorts of scenarios. And that's why, again, don't cancel anything until you know that you've got some new stuff in place. But we raise that with people all the time. Don't just roll it over. If you've got some insurance, make sure you've got some new cover in place, or if you're going to cancel some insurance cover because you're changing your super funds over, make sure you've had a medical if you're comfortable to cancel it.
Yes.
But too many times people cancel and they go, and 3 months later they go and discover they've got some illness that if they'd had insurance, they probably would have got the payout on it.
Oh, wow, that's good thinking. So if you have your medical too late and they discover the illness, you're like, hang on, I would have been covered before. Okay, I didn't think of that.
So if you're in a retail one and you want to set up a self-managed, well, there you go. So you should have. So this is where it comes back to. So if you want to set up a self-managed, get it established, but go through the process of understanding if you're going to take out new cover.
Yeah.
Get it in place before you cancel.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes people will do that, but they'll keep a small amount in a retail super fund or an industry fund because they can't get new cover, but they want the self-managed super fund because they specifically want to get say a piece of real estate, and the only way they can do it is via a self-managed super fund. But they can still maintain, so it's a vehicle to purchase the asset. So that's very purposeful in what they're doing, rather than I'll just roll it all over. But it's worth keeping the retail fund, and they might have to put 10 grand a year into that fund to keep it to pay the premiums. But really, long term, it's the value sits in the self-managed because they wanted to buy a real asset.
Because I know I found in my personal experience, and obviously everyone's got a different situation, but my personal experience was the insurance that I got through my self-managed super fund was, or privately, if you like, was much better than the insurance that I was getting through. Covered more and was, more appropriate for me than I got through the more generic cover through my super fund.
Can be. So it depends. Like it's a group policy through the industry funds. It's unitized. Sometimes it can be fixed, but you may not go through the full underwriting. Whereas if you're doing it privately, generally, depending on the levels of cover, you'll get fully underwritten. And so therefore they've checked all the medicals, ticked all the boxes and said, no, we're happy to pay you if something occurred, whereas that's not always the case. Like, again, it depends on people's personal circumstances.
Yeah, okay. So self-managed super, the answer is it depends. Thanks, Dave. That really helps.
I like to be a good lawyer on that one as well. I've taken a leaf out of your book and said, well, it depends.
No, I don't do that. I say definitely you should.
Yeah, well.
Always, and go to Dave. He'll help you out. It'd be great.
So I'll close it out on and thanking Alex for the conversation today. Should I set up a self-managed super fund? It's being the comment I will say, it depends upon the purpose of what you're trying to achieve. That will give you a yes or a no on it.
Yep.
So thank you for your time today, Alex, from Taurus Legal Management. Alex can be contacted via LinkedIn at Alex Martin or via the website tauruslawyers.com.au.
Thanks, Dave. And I'd like to thank David Murdoch, the wealth activist from Paxton Bridge. And you can find him at paxtonbridge.com or on LinkedIn at David Murdoch.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy, and we shall talk soon.
See you next time. Thank you.